I'm going to discuss the rules for the forms of answers on MathCounts. I will be reviewing the rules as printed in the 2024-25 School Handbook. For the most up-to-date rules, you should ask your coach for the most recent handbook in case there are any changes to the rules. Let's take a look at the rules from 2024 to 25. The first rule tells us that students will not be required to write in the units in the answer blanks. They will be provided for you. If the student does provide the units, they must be correct. For example, if the problem asks for the number of ounces and you give the answer in pounds and ounces, that will be counted wrong. If 25 cents is the correct answer, then this will also be counted wrong. Here's another example. This problem asks for how many years older Ben is than Ed. If the answer is 2 years and you instead decide to write in 24 months, this will be marked incorrect. When MathCounts prints the units into the answer blanks, they will always print it in the plural form. Here we see the units years are provided. Let's say you do your calculations and you find that Ben is 1 year older than Ed. Don't worry if you see the plural form of the unit, you can still write 1 in the answer blank. Remember also that any figures may not be drawn to scale, and unless the units of length are provided, the lengths will be measured in units. Let's take a look at a couple of examples. On the left here, they're asking for the area of the triangle in square units, and that is provided. Here, the lengths are measured in inches, and the same unit is provided in the answer blank. In general, you do not need to provide units in your answers. MathCounts expects all of their answers to be written in simplest form. If the problem statement asks for the answer to be written as a common fraction, that's going to look like plus or minus a over b, where a and b have no factors in common. For example, over here, 4 over 6 will be counted wrong because our numerator and our denominator have a factor of 2 and can be simplified to 2/3. Common fractions can also have a numerator that's greater than the denominator, for example, 3/2. If you write 3/2 as what is called a mixed numeral, this will be counted incorrect. The numerator and denominator can also contain algebraic expressions. Again, make sure that there are no common factors in your numerator and denominator. Mixed numbers consist of a whole number plus a fraction where the numerator is less than the denominator, and there are no common factors shared by the numerator and denominator. Watch out in particular if the problem statement asks for a mixed number. If the problem statement asks for a ratio, that should be written as a common fraction. So this is how you want to write your ratio. You don't want to write it as a mixed number. You don't want to write it as a decimal. You also don't want to separate the parts of the ratio with a colon. Use a common fraction. Let's talk about square roots and other roots. MathCounts wants your square and cubed roots to be simplified. The radicand here is the part that's underneath the square root. This number 1 here means that there is no factor of the radicand that is a perfect square. Here in their example, square root of 75 is wrong because 75 is the product of 3 and a perfect square. So we can pull out the 5 and write this as 5√3. Let's take a look at answers involving money. If MathCounts asks for a question involving money, the units will be provided for you, so you'll already see a dollar sign there. You'll have some whole number of dollars to the left of the decimal point and then 2 digits that follow. Or you might have something that says A.BC and then the word dollars is the unit. Here they give some acceptable answers. In particular, if your answer was 38 cents, you can write a 0 to the left of the decimal point followed by a 3 and an 8, or you can omit the 0 and just write .38. But this first option makes it less likely that the proctor will miss the decimal. If your answer is $5, you have 2 choices. You can either write a 5 like this, or a 5 with a decimal point and 2 zeros. What you cannot write is a 5 with a decimal point and then a single 0. This will be counted incorrect. One can make an argument that $4.90 is the same as $4.9, but in MathCounts, this will be marked incorrect, and you should write both digits to the right of the decimal. Do not approximate some of these numbers like pi or 2/3 or a square root. Sometimes the problem will specifically tell you to approximate to some degree of accuracy, say to the nearest 10th or 100th. Follow the instructions in the problem statement, but if there are no instructions, then use the exact numbers. If you're using a calculator, avoid rounding early in the calculation process. Try to do all of your rounding at the very end. A good tip is to become very familiar with your calculator. If you don't currently have a calculator, I recommend a calculator that uses reverse Polish notation. It's abbreviated RPN, and sometimes it's called a scientific calculator. This allows you to store a lot of intermediate numbers and makes it very easy to save all of your rounding until the very end. Whatever calculator you choose, make sure that it complies with the MathCounts rules. You'll find the most current rules again in the handbook. I don't see scientific notation occur very often in MathCounts competitions, but you should be familiar with it. To write this 4-digit number in scientific notation, we're going to move the decimal point over 3 spots. And to make this equal, we're going to multiply by 10 to the 3rd power. We need to have one non-zero digit to the left of the decimal point. This is also equal to 68.95 times 10 squared. But this is not scientific notation because we have 2 digits to the left of the decimal point. Do not add extra levels of accuracy than is asked for in the problem. If the answer is a whole number, then write it as a whole number. Here in their example, if the answer is 25, just write a 2 and a 5. Don't add on a lot of extra zeros, even though it's the same number. It will be counted wrong. These are the most recent rules for the forms of answers. Don't forget to talk to your coach and ask to see the most recent handbook to confirm that there haven't been any other changes. And good luck in MathCounts. If you have questions about any math contests, please leave them in the comments.